Hey, we want to welcome you back out to the fab shop here at Trick Tools. This video is going to be a little different, more just a project-based video, kind of quicker. I'm going to explain what we're doing here. This is a Suzuki Hayabusa that needs a new header. They use this for drag racing, so it pretty much only sees the strip, not the street. We've got a header on it right now. It's 1 3/4 primaries, and we're going to be starting with 1 3/4 and then stepping up to 1 7/8, and you know, basically kind of almost duplicating what you see here, but we're going to move it. So right now the pipe kind of sticks out a little bit too far this way because how they run it, it doesn't have all the factory plastics and fairings and that kind of thing on it. So we're going to actually move the collector position over, and that's going to require us to change some of the tubes as far as the way they're shaped and all that, as well as stepping up to that 1 7/8. So yeah, we're going to show you guys the steps necessary that you know, to get that done. We have all new materials, collector. This bike uses a different style of exhaust port, so this piece kind of inserts into the cylinder head a little bit, and then the flange slides over that. So the flange is always loose on here. So that'll go on there, and then we'll weld the pipe right to the end of this, and then have the bends come down and all that. So there's that. The new collector, this is all from SPD. If you haven't seen our other header building video, we have a how to build headers video that's on our YouTube channel. So I'll put that link in the description. You can check that video out. We build headers for a drag car in that video. But this one is gonna be a little different. We're not gonna go in throughout all the different ways and practices and how you can build a set of headers. We're just gonna pretty much build this set of headers kind of with minimal tooling. Basically gonna use, you know, stuff that the majority of people would have in their garage. So yeah, and once we get that done, we'll weld it all up. The collector is going to be able to be removed, so it will be a slip-on style. As you can see, the header that's on here has the springs on it because it's a slip-on style as well. We're going to be duplicating that. We've got new tabs and springs to put on here, and we'll make the new exit there. So we've got all our U-bends down over here, and now at this point, I'm going to take this header off, and basically I'll get this collector mocked up in here, and then you know, start some of the initial tubes, some of the tubes that I know will be pretty straightforward as far as where they're going to be and how they're going to be. We'll get those in there, and then we'll build some of the more complicated tubes, which from what I see looking at this header is going to be basically starting from the left side of the bike, the other side to this way. So we'll start with the left side, work our way this way as far as the tubes, and then go from there. So we're gonna go ahead and get started, so hopefully you enjoy this video. All right, so we took the old header off, and we have the old collector here. You can see it's rusty on the inside. Obviously this was all steel material, so this header had its fun, but it's now to replace it with some good stainless material. So essentially this used to stick out about like this. We're going to be tucking it in this way to make sure it's tucked in as close as possible to just make it look a little bit nicer and fit the bike a little better. So what we're going to start with is to kind of duplicate the I guess the turnout here with the tip with the collector. So we have our new collector here, and we have our new U-bend that will make up the turnout from there. So we're gonna cut that bend, fit it up to the end of the collector here, get it tacked on, make sure it fits around here, you know, how we want it, and then at that point we'll build a couple little posts to hold this up in place. You know, here with the bend coming around, we'll hold it up in place where we want it, and then from there we'll start on the header tubes to actually be able to start putting this header together. So, all right, well, we have the first tube in place. Basically just went ahead and mocked up the collector in the spot where we wanted it. You don't always have the right stuff to cut and weld stuff to make a perfect fixture to hold something up in place. One of the most useful tools I've always found in the shop is blocks of wood. You can stack them up, find the height you want, that sort of thing. So stacked up a couple of 2x4s and another piece that's about a 3/4 inch width. So got those stacked up, held the collector up in place. And then also in doing that, put the elbow on it for the, I guess the turnout for the exhaust. So got that on there, used that to mock up the collector. And now we have the first tube in place, and really we're pretty limited on this as far as, options of how we can route it, where we want to go. So knowing that I was going to have to come out of the one port in the collector and basically make a complete U-turn 180 degrees to go back to the other side to be able to pick up the first exhaust port in the cylinder head. Cut the 180 bend where I wanted it, slid it in the collector, and then on the other side we are stepping from out of the cylinder head. We're going 1 3/4 and then stepping up to 1 7/8 once we get around the first bend. So I cut the 1 3/4 to get my 90 degree out of the cylinder head, and then was able to judge the angle I needed to meet up with the U-bend that I had coming out of the collector to then cut the next piece, get all three of those pieces joined together. So I've got that one in place. I'm going to go ahead and work on the second tube, which is basically going to mimic this. We have to come 180 degrees out, go back on the other side of this bracket that's here, and then go up into the cylinder head. So I'm going to take some of the other halves of the bends that I've already cut for the first one and use that on the second one, and it's going to be really close in shape to the first one, just with a couple of minor differences. So I'm going to keep working on this and show you guys using the second tube, kind of how I did it to get the first tube in place. All right, so a little explanation here as far as how I'm going to approach cutting the tubes. Like I said before, with the U-bend that's in here, I knew I needed to stay 180 degrees. So I'll just be taking a bend and basically cutting it at the distance I need for it to slide all the way into the collector, to where as soon as it slides in, basically right out of the collector, it's going to turn immediately and go the 180 degrees. So that's what I did on the other one there. I've got the two remnant cuts from the other two bends where it came out of the cylinder head and then turned back towards this U-bend. So these are the remnant cuts, and I'm going to be able to use these to basically supplement the material I need for this other tube. So essentially the first thing I'm going to do, just to get my position, is match this 180 degree bend here with the new one. So I'm going to mark this bend here, cut it off, and get it in place just like this one. And then I'll take the next piece here, and I'll find the measurement I need for it to line up with the port on the cylinder head, and I'll place that on there, lined up with the U-bend, to where it'll come out, U-bend, and then it'll go right in from the U into this bend and bend up to where that port is. And then I'll figure out at what angle I need for this bend to be cut, what location to be able to put these two together. So because these are different sizes, like I said, we're stepping from 1 3/4 to 1 7/8. I just basically need to get these to line up the best I can, to make sure all the clocking's right, and then this will actually slide inside of here. There's still some burrs on here, so it's not going to slide in there right now, but we'll get the U-bend in there, kind of get going on that a little bit. I'll show you guys once that's in there how I'm going to mark those and how I cut these. and then also some tricks I use to get the fit up to be right where you need it to be. All right, so I've got the U-bend, the second U-bend cut and placed in here, to match the first one. So essentially at this point what I need to do is to turn that up 90 degrees and connect it with the port in the cylinder head. So what I'm going to do is I'll probably going to start with the port side, because sometimes what I found is it's easiest to start with both ends and then meet in the middle, instead of trying to start at one end and meet at the other end. It all just depends on, I don't know, what you're doing. Sometimes if the tube is pretty straightforward, maybe you have 1-2 bends in it at the most before you get to where you need to be as far as where your tube placement is. It's easier to start at one end and work to the other. But I've found it, on some of the more difficult tubes that have multiple bends, if you give yourself your location at the start, your location at the end, you can then continue to work and join them in the middle. So I'm going to start by cutting this. I'll try to figure out the placement in there of the angle that this is going to be at coming out of the cylinder head, and then we'll cut that, whatever angle that is, get it coming down at the same angle as this here, and then from that point it's just going to be a matter of adding in the other bend to then have this turn up into this tube here to where they'll connect together and I can tack weld them there. So that's the plan initially. So I'm going to work right now, like I said, on finding this angle here and getting this cut down to where I need it, and we'll go from there. Another thing is that sometimes what I found is that it's easier to, if you can actually use a different port to judge your angle. So the port I'm going to be building off of is all the way tucked in here, which is hard to get to. So at this point, I'm actually going to use this port, the first one this way, and line up the tube, based on the angle of the U-bend that I have, and that'll kind of tell me what the angle is. I'll measure out and see what would be a perpendicular cut across the bend here, and then I should be able to cut it there and then immediately transfer that to the port on the other side. So I'm gonna work on that, and if I find that I need to do something else or tweak the way I'm doing it, I'll let you guys know. So what I did there was I just tried to measure out from the edge of this perpendicular to the port and mark where the high point would touch on the bend here, and then what I'm going to do is basically from there draw a perpendicular line across the tube from that high point. So I marked it with a Sharpie. Now I'm going to mark across the tube this way, perpendicular, and that should be where my cut needs to be as far as getting the angle as far as where this tube needs to come out of the cylinder head. So I'm going to go ahead and draw this line on here, and then I'll show you guys how I cut it. All right, so I drew the line here across the tube perpendicular to it, and you always want to cut towards what the tangent point of your bend radius would be. So if you imagine the center point of a bend, let's grab a U-bend. If you imagine the center point of where this is going to be a perpendicular line, no matter which direction you go, you always want to draw towards that point. So that way when you cut it, when you cut your bend, if you meet match this up with another bend, it's always gonna flow no matter where this is connected. Gas is always gonna flow nice and even. So you don't want to cut this off at some weird angle, because then you're gonna be, the flow is gonna want to come out and then immediately, cut to a different direction. It's not gonna flow as easily. So, and also your end product won't look as nice. So you always want to, like I said, cut perpendicular to the tangent point of the bend, and that allows you to get the best looking end product, the best flow, the best performance. So drew that line here. I'm going to go ahead and go over to the bench and we'll cut this thing. All right, so like I said, I had that line that I marked on this tube, and so here's a way that you can cut your mandrel bend without needing a bandsaw or that sort of thing. Is this the best way to do it? Absolutely not. Will it work? Yes. So to show you guys, this way, the one thing you got to remember is just be as safe as you can. Wear proper safety gear, face mask, gloves, all that kind of thing. And really just go slow. Let the cutoff wheel do the work. So we're going to use a grinder with a cutoff wheel, and to cut through the tube, basically you just gotta, like I said, go slow, let the grinder do the work, follow your mark, and just be as true as possible while you're cutting. So it is possible to do it safely. I've done this many times before. Sometimes you don't have the access to a nice bandsaw, because nice bandsaws are expensive, and sometimes the cheap ones don't work, especially on stainless material. The blades can deflect and that sort of thing, and it just makes it a lot more difficult to do this process of building headers. So so I'm going to go ahead and cut this one with this, and then no matter what, whether you cut it with a bandsaw, whether you cut it by hand, that sort of thing, no matter what, you need to have access to a flat belt sander. I don't see how it's really possible, at least to get the highest quality product possible, to do it without a flat belt sander. So you see the Kalamazoo sander back here. Once I'm done with this cut, I'll be taking it over there to sand that surface nice and flat. It's got a nice flat platen on the backside to be able to get that surface nice and true. That way when you meet the two cuts, up, they're going to clock no matter which way, and the surfaces will still meet because you trued them up on the belt sander. So we're going to go ahead and cut this, show you guys how that's done. Like I said, wear proper safety gear, protect your eyes, that sort of thing, gloves, and we're going to get this cut. So. So you can see technique works pretty well. Get your initial cut. So we're going to go over to the belt sander right now, sand that surface flat, and then we'll be able to put these with any other tube that we might need to, and then we'll continue fitting these in the bike. So. All right, so we got these pieces tacked together in here. Got the elbow that turns up to connect to the elbow that's coming out of the port for this second tube. Got that little elbow tacked to the 180 U-bend here. And then now basically what I just have to do is to tack the elbow coming out of the port to the elbow that's tacked here. And then essentially that tube's done until it gets welded. So Gonna go ahead and tack that, and then we're also at the same time going to start cutting the tubes to come out of the bottom of the collector here to start our placement of our tubes here. So we'll get this cut. Basically it's going to be a 90-degree turn, so they'll stick out here 90 degrees, and then from there we'll have to obviously build them up to connect to the 2 remaining ports that'll be open. So we're going to continue working on these, and hopefully we'll get these tubes in here pretty quickly. I got the tube that U-bend I had cut in half, and got the one end slid in here. Obviously it's sticking out too far, so what I'm going to do to measure this is just to take a square and place it on here until I have, you know, a little bit of a gap. I don't want to, you know, cut this in so far that once I put another tube on here that it's going to touch there when you slide that in and have that tube on top of here. You know, so we'll get it in here like that, you know, measure what that distance is, and then we'll cut that off of the straight section down here, and then we'll do the same for the 4th tube behind here. So we'll have the 2 tubes here coming out of the collector and turning up that 90 degrees, and then from there it'll be a matter of you know, we'll probably get the 3rd port in line here on the head to come out and start, you know, bringing it together here in the middle, and then we can figure out exactly what's necessary to connect those 2. And the last one we'll do is probably going to be the front tube, which one at that point we'll make that go up to the 4th port in the cylinder head. So we're going to get this trimmed up. We'll get this other one trimmed up and fit in here as well. So we'll have the 2 of these both in there, and we'll keep building from there. All right, well, we have the header done officially. It's all welded and in place. The only thing we really have left to do is to build a bracket. We actually moved the radiator forward an inch here, so we just have to make a new bracket to mount that. But other than that, the headers themselves are completely done. We got them welded out and they're slip fit into the collector. So we've got these springs with tabs that we welded on to hold it in place. So this is pretty much it. So hopefully this video is a little bit of a continuation of our other header building video to give you guys a little more ideas on how to get your headers done, and hopefully you enjoyed seeing the process on this one. So we'll show you a few shots of the header complete in place here, and yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos like this one, and also on some of the tools that we use here in the shop. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you soon.